It's the weekly 30-30 list on the ASX. We're looking at the top 30 momentum companies over the last quarter and the top 30 launchpad stocks. They're companies whose momentum has improved the best over the last week. Gary Glover's been through the list and pulled out his best trading shares and best charts. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good, I'm great, Chris. How you going?
Well, I'm happy to be going through this list. We were talking before air, saying there's a fair few positions in your portfolio that have popped. I remember going through this list and finding some that are sort of trawling out bottoms and starting to edge up. Now, that was before the market opened, so some of them could have popped already. Did you find anything interesting in that quarterly momentum list?
Yeah, I mean, there's it's fun. It's like feels like the market's been a bit of a grind here for the last month or two. This is one of the first days. I was just saying earlier, it's one of the first days where actually everything's popped big for me today. So some big moves. So it's sort of like you grind, and then sort of sort of small gain or small loss, and then you just sort of doing the portfolio sort of moving slowly. But then if you use the sort of risk management techniques and stuff there and keep everything under control, then eventually you have a pop there. I was just thinking the other day actually about process. Just stick to your process there, and I think recently I probably got out of trades too early and the rest of it. So just try to go back and look at process there. But definitely lots moving here there. I think Arafura was number one on the list. ASM Ausstratmaterials there was number two there. I thought that was sort of interesting there because I had a bit of a pop off the low there, some reasonable volume, had a bit of a pullback, a lot of volume, then popped again. So a bit down the risky end, but not too bad there. I think WGX was sort of one that we looked at previously, but yeah, the volume sort of starting to get a little tired there. Just a little something interesting here. Not doesn't always sort of work there, but I'm always sort of wary of like what I call like a not a triple top, but like a three thrust high here. So if the market's been running for a while and then it starts to overlap, it has this little 1, 2, 3 overlap. I always be careful of that as well. And it sort of did pop into a bit of volume there. So that's that little topping pattern there, little broadening top there. Is just sort of something to be careful of there.
So it's overlapping and looking on the side.
Yeah. So that's like an overlapping trend is sort of what this is overlapping here. It's going sort of sideways, and then it starts to pop out, and then it oftentimes they'll come back and sit on top of the old high, and that's like a normal trend. If it doesn't come back and leave space there, that means it's in a strong position to keep going here. And even there, still that's left spacing between there and now. It's still in a strong position, so it keeps going.
So you're looking at the high from like the 2021 December to the low.
To this point here, the trend's looking really strong, but then it pulls back, and it pulls back below the last high. So that's the first time there that actually shows any weakness at all. And what do we see then? The volume too, just slightly heavier than that last move up as well. So we show pulls back into the range. The first time actually it's sort of shown some weakness there. Has another go higher here, but then you're sort of starting to overlap here. So that's always a bit of a concern here. So now it's sort of edged back here. So if I was still long this here, I'd be tightening myself. I'd be tightening right up here. I'd probably be using this sort of average here, or me personally, I'm normally out quick smart, but yeah, even if I was giving a bit more room there, I'd probably use a moving average there. But that's just sort of something to be mindful of there when those sort of things start running. You just don't want to see them overlap. That's when they'll either have a bit of a pause, or they'll or have a correction there. I think Myer was number 5 on the list. It's pretty impressive.
It's quite surprising, isn't it, for Myer?
Yeah. This chart here. This is something I sort of saw everywhere, Chris. Is the old cup and handle here, and it's sort of actually a lesson for me was that the cup and handle is not a formation that I'm an expert at. I've just realised that in the last week here that I've read about it, I understand it, but it's not a pattern that I've mastered. Like the false break and VCP, I spent a lot of time studying those and know those pretty well. I know the 3 thrust highs and a few other little patterns I'm really all over here, but the cup and handle is one pattern that I'm definitely not all over. I need to go back and read my Bulkowski and do a bit more homework on it. But we've seen so many cup and handles here set up in the last few weeks, and yeah, it's been some really good moves there. I mean, that's a nice little cup and handle in there. But yeah, we'll go through some charts. We'll just see it everywhere. But yeah, once you see that consolidation there under the high, and then it pops through. So this is, to me, this is your sort of B wave break here. So you're breaking above that high, which is always a good sign. And then once you break above the old high, that's an even better sign. So this is sort of what happens in healthy markets when you which we haven't seen too much of recently. We've seen more sideways markets and not follow through. So now we're starting to see some follow through on some of these moves there, which is pretty interesting. So it's just sort of telling you what the market's going through there. RSG was sort of one that we spoke about a bit. Had a nice move to 30, gone from 20 to 30. That's a nice return there. SDR, that's the old sort of Siteminder there. So again, this is sort of growth there, just sort of starting to build a few high lows in there. This is a VCP. It all sort of tightened up in here, and then we started to break above here. So, you know, breaking above the old high, you know, not convincing, and here's still a lot of volumes there, but it definitely did sort of punch through, came back, sort of, you know, probably sat on top of that move and then it's gone again. So again, it's just a bit of movement into growth there. It's sort of, you know, it's pretty interesting there. You know, look, it's funny. I sort of, if you look at the big macro picture at the moment, lots of people are, you know, bullish, and, you know, or sorry, more people are bearish, and fewer people are bullish there. People calling this a melt up, or, but yeah, there's just so many sort of, I guess a lot of the fundamentals are still sort of questionable out there. You know, we got, you know, rates rising, we got potential recession, you know, coming on here. So we've got all this, so much happening in the macro environment. You can sometimes, being smart or even being really high IQ, knowing too much can actually hinder your trading, and it can actually be a bad thing for your trading. You know, knowing too much on the macro front, and knowing too much fundamentals and stuff there, it can just sort of hinder sort of what you're doing with your trading there. Look, at the end of the day, I think you just got to look at, you know, on the macro side there, understand what's happening in the macro environment, but rather than judge it, you know, what should happen in the macro environment, go back and look at what happened in the past with the same conditions. And that's that. I tell you, 80% of the market doesn't do that, because if they understood the macro conditions, what happened in inflation, what happened in growth crunch, what happens post-growth crunch, if they looked in the past, what happened in those periods, they would understand that we've just replicated exactly what's occurred in the past, and what's been unfolding here for the last few months is identical. The other thing I'd look at is our cycles. Just what's our cycles sort of indicating to us here. And the third and the most important thing we look at here is just what's the price action, you know, telling us, Chris. I mean, we highlighted 3 weeks ago that there was a change in character in the market, and that the growth stocks, the NASDAQ, was starting to outperform the other indices, which it hadn't done for the last probably 12, 15 months. So that started occurring 3 weeks ago. We had a couple of days on that week there that were sort of the NASDAQ outperforming other indices, and then we had 4 out of 5 days the following week, NASDAQ outperforming the other indices, and then what have we just shown this week here? The NASDAQ's going crazy, popping crazy. Dow's off last night. The NASDAQ's going crazy up here. So you saw those changing conditions occurring here. So don't try and outsmart yourself. Don't try and be the smartest bloke in the room. Just follow what history has shown us. What are the cycles showing us? And what is the price action suggesting us? It doesn't need to be any harder than that. I mean, I've just given you all my secrets away here in the last minute. You probably don't need me anymore. So that's it. So that's really it. It's all we need to look at. So we don't need to make it any harder than that. I think as traders here, and sometimes we can overcomplicate it, and, you know, have too much IQ there and try and outsmart ourselves. Find, you know, if you know too much, you almost identify reasons not to trade. So,
talk yourself out of the trade as opposed to looking at the charts and what the data's telling you.
So just trade what's in front of us here. Learn some history there, some lessons. I think that really, you know, and just learn some basic cycles there, market cycles as well. So whether you're looking at sort of some of the economic cycles, you're looking at even the Wyckoff sort of charting cycles, look at Weinstein's sort of his sort
Four
of chart
phases.
cycle as well. Just learn some basic cycles there, sort of what happens in the past, how it builds. Just get some basic sort of fundamentals there. If you're a sportsman there, you need the fundamentals to survive, and then it's about sort of adding to that. So just get the fundamentals down pat there. Before I get back on track here, so I thought Square was pretty interesting there, just because I noticed that looking at Square back here, we did see like a little false break of that low there. See like a little bit of an AVC sort of in here. Probably went back for a second retest there, but once this sort of went to a new low and then popped back in the range there, that's just hasn't looked back and sort of kept going here. So those little false breaks there, just some good sort of reversal patterns there. What do we got there? OML, this is sort of one that's sort of been building quite nicely here. LOT, just a smaller one that's sort of moving up as well. I thought a couple that I saw there was, again, this is our sort of big cup here and a bit of a handle there, Chris, and then pop through it again as well. This is just a pattern I've kept seeing this over and over again. And I've seen it on some of the bigger stocks as well. And it's just sort of popped through, kept going. So that's Blackmores there. I think Sandfire Resources was the number 30 on the list as well. Again, this is big sort of cup here, almost a bit of a handle in here as well. When you see this little tight sort of
consolidation
there,
at the top.
David
Ryan, you were saying, who trades similar patterns?
Dave Ryan talks about that little tight pattern there, but this sort of cup and handle there. I think even Reece as well. This little cup in here and the little handle there, and then the pop through there. So up here, the volumes weren't that heavy, but it's not a heavy trader at the best of times anyway. But this is just a nice little cup and handle in here, and it's just shot through. And 16 here, now we're almost 1750 here already. So it's just a pattern I keep seeing here. For me, I was just sort of it's a pattern I need to do a bit more work on personally. It's definitely one that I know that's popular in growth fundamentals. In momentum sort of stocks here as well. So and from what I've seen here, it's in some of those bigger caps as well recently. So
I know a book that you gave me with William O'Neill's sort of top plays over decades. There was just consistently looking at those mammoth runs for market leaders. Just consistently, you're seeing cup and handles in there.
Yeah, it's definitely when you're sort of seeing those sort of top stocks there, sort of what I call sort of the bigger cap growth stocks. So so it's definitely a pattern that we should do some more work on there. And me personally, I've sort of been looking at it quite a bit. I've traded a couple of them, but I definitely need to, feel like I've got most of my other patterns down pat. It's definitely one that I want to build up my expertise on a bit more, actually. Just it's sort of, because I know I remember reading Bulkowski about, the lower cups and the higher cups, and, there was some sort of disparity between the performance of each different sort of cup and handle. So you're worth revisiting some of that again.
There's one where it's how they perform coming into it, and ideally they like to have a 30% rise before the start of the cup, so before the start of the big pullback. So there's a whole lot of data to unpack there. If any viewers have unpacked the data, we'd love to hear about it. Comment below and tell us how they've studied cup and handles. But
maybe I think, have you done a cup and handle sort of special there historically?
I haven't done that yet. I've got the charts set aside, so I've got a lot of cup and handles to study, but I haven't gone through the detailed video yet. So maybe that's something we could do together, is unpack the cup and handles.
Unpack there. I think it'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Better keep going here with the launch pad there. So looking at the sort of stocks on the move there. One interesting actually group in there was property trust here, Chris.
Yes.
There's quite a few property trusts in there. So I saw a couple weeks ago, which I liked actually, which sort of had a bit of a pop there. But
you did put a few in your weekly report, didn't you?
Yeah, it's not a sector I normally look at there. So number one on the launchpad this week is Netwealth Resources, DRE. It's not too bad here actually. This is pretty. All that mean run there, all the volume there, pretty strong. Now we got a little VCP in there, Chris. Just starting to edge up here. edge up the range. It's not bad volumes again here as well. So not a stock that I'm sort of too familiar with, but definitely highlighted this one as like one to have a really close look at there, because that price action is pretty constructive. Nothing negative about that, and that's just a bit of that's a nice pause in the trend here. And what we want to basically, wait for those pauses and then start to get going again and get on board. So
constructive that it's sitting back and floating around that 50-day moving average.
Yeah, we're back above the 50. I mean, that's pretty good considering we've sort of gone sideways here for a few months here. So yeah, I think it's yeah. I mean, the only negative for me is it's small, but I love this volume here. That's that's just strong impulsive volume up here, and then the volume's quietened off here, and then just started to get active here, the volume again. Yeah, so actually starting to see some volume days again here. So that's that's pretty decent there. So just need to do some more homework on that, but I think that looks pretty good. I saw Mesoblast on their list there. Not sure of this one here. I think this is a nice uptrend here. It looks like it's sort of maybe tipped over here. I don't like to sort of see that's the largest correction of this move here. Yeah, so that's like a bit of an overbalance for me. So not one I'll be rushing towards. Netwealth, I was surprised, and I know it's had a nice recovery here, but it did sort of slip off and then recover there. Probably a bit more market related there, a bit like the hub there as well. So these two are just following the market that are running there. So probably sort of high beta. They'll probably, when the market's on fire, they'll be more on fire. So that's sort of indicative of the market there, but that still looks pretty good there. It's just like an ABC, come back in here and then look at the volume. It's pretty solid there. So nothing wrong with hub there. That looks like it wants to trade to a new high to me. So it's got some momentum there. HSN, interesting there, just sort of a bit of a ABC in here, nice and tight, maybe VCP, but has gone to a new high there and then sort of failed here. And the volumes are pretty scattered through here as well. So, when the volume's a bit messy like this is sort of like, yeah, look, I'd look at that and go, it's okay, but it's not showing me compelling volume. And like getting to the high in one day is sort of, I know it's impulsive there, but for a small stock like this, it's just makes it sort of choppy, hard to trade there. So, sort of Flight Centre's looking pretty decent. Had a nice sort of gap up there. Yeah. Yeah, looks pretty constructive there. I think, that acquisition there was only about 5 or 6% of the market cap there. That's pretty small. So you're not going to get many shares in the SPP. I think that's what's at 180 mil. I think 140 was done the placement, 1460 or something. So pretty good price. The SPP, everyone was bidding as much as they want for it. The big
scale back will be phenomenal.
Yeah. So you probably end up with $2.5 grand or $5 grand each or something like that. So, yeah, but that's a bit of a strategic play there for Flight Centre. So moving into buying a sort of a premium sort of operator there in the UK, better margins than Flight Centre, and a small, just more of a strategic sort of stake there. So it just gives them so that market likes that. Obviously market likes growth here at the moment. So that's a business which they can, hopefully to give them a leg into the UK and grow. So yeah, that's, that looks pretty positive there to me. You look at Flight Centre on the weekly. Obviously the daily looks like it's gapped up here, but you look on the weekly, you think, this has got room here. This has just been a corrective decline in here. Now it can get going here. It's sort of, it might do a little bit up and down here, but that looks pretty constructive there to me. The market will, starting to warm to growth here, and they will like anything that's got a bit of a growth story as well here. Baby bunting, nothing going on there. MME I thought was interesting there. Moneyme just had a little bit of a pop there, but it has sort of drawn some more volume in there. So I'd want to sort of see it more tailor off and have less volume there. HMC was sort of one that I did notice myself there. Just made a little false break here, Chris, of the low. Although the volumes weren't heavy, it has sort of gone up quite nicely. I did see something similar from Aristocrat. Did see that sort of go to a new low there. I didn't think the volumes at the time were impressive there. I had one good volume day off the low there, but it took a little while for the volume to come in. Yeah, this one's, the volumes aren't as heavy here, but still pretty constructive there. Yeah, so that looks quite good as well. That's a little bit more on the growth side as well. ASM, sort of, I think one we sort of highlighted there last week, might have just made the list there last week, might have popped out early. Good volume off that low. Bit of a sideways shimmy and then go again. It's probably one just to sort of keep an eye on there. Probably want to sort of see, you know, gotta be careful chasing these sort of small ones that are, you know, because there's so many sort of people who've bought this sort of stock so much higher. It's just going to keep a lid on the shares. It's going to struggle to get going there, just because, you know, anytime it get back there, people who've bought it who've lost money or get back to square will just sort of try and exit, you know. So you know, you want sort of sticky hands when you got stocks. You want people who, yeah, they believe the story and they get locked in and never want to sell it. And then and the only people who can come into the market are people are new buyers. So which means there's, you know, less stock around. That's what drives sort of, that's the thing that drives sort of share price. So that's why, you know, there's in that William O'Neill sort of stuff, they look at sort of companies of, you know, what the free float is. So look at what management, you know, what percentage of the management owns the shares. So if the, you know, if the management owns like 40, 50, 60% of the company's shares, then usually one, they don't sell them, or, you know, they have to sort of do something special to, you know, organize an exit. But usually there's a term there too. Sometimes it can be 2 or 3 or, you know, 5 years they've got to hang on to before they're allowed to even exit. So you know, if you've 60% of the register is tied up, only 40% of the shares can be, you know, that's when you can get big moves in stock, because no one's sort of exiting here. This NXT actually was sort of one that we saw, I think might have come up very recently as well there. Just a nice little VCP in there. Did go below the 50 there, but just the fact that it's all tightened up here, it's a little bit light to trade there. I did have a look at this. It's a little bit, you know, trade by appointment, which is not great. So it just means you have to sort of go a bit smaller there. But nice little VCP and then a little bit of a pop in here. So that looks okay there, but, you know, it's just hard to trade some of those. I think we mentioned Tyro was the only sort of one that out of those sort of buy now, pay laters that I would have looked at, but, you know, still meandering up here, starting to overlap as well. So once it sort of starts overlapping, that's not really a sign of strength. What have we got there? RFF, real funds, sort of, yeah, just starting to sort of tick up there. Volume's okay, possibly a higher low in place there. Probably one to keep an eye on there. Everyone's talking about food shortages there, potentially overseas, so maybe that's a sort of keep an eye on. Well, this one looked pretty good there. The only thing that's sort of missing there was the volume there. So if you look on the weekly there, it's pretty what's in there? Yeah, it's pretty low volume there, moves there, so nothing sort of too sticky there. Whereas if you look at that RFF there, that's got a bit more volume in it. That's a little bit more better. Yeah, it looks like more of a higher low, so just a slightly better signal there. Well, I think my mouse is a little unfriendly today. Next one there was Xero. Yeah, this is my largest position I've got on at the moment, so I'm pretty happy that it's firing here. Just sort of, yeah, some of the growth there. I just thought it was a nice little VCP in there. Had a little false break in here, Chris. Went down and
tested.
My mouse is just not.
So tested those lows with that big volume, came down and retested it.
Yeah, so I think I made a new low by 1 cent or something, you know, crazy like that, which I love the little 1 cent, you know.
An intraday reversal.
yeah. But the thing is, here, just stayed nice and tight as well. So there's actually some decent volume in here off this low here. So I thought, oh, there's actually some volume coming in. And then we had a couple of days down here and no volume. Thought, well, that looks even. Yeah, it looks really good.
So selling dried up, had the opportunity to sell at higher levels, didn't follow through, consolidated, and
you just saw all the other growth stocks. So at that stage there, we had Seek was firing up, sort of one that I've had in the portfolios there. Some Dominoes as well. That's been really strong. So all those sort of, you know, growth stocks are there. Car sales sort of one is interesting there. again, this little cup and handle there again, Chris.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. I saw Roger Montgomery actually talking about car sales yesterday. Sort of reckons they've overpaid for one of their, which could be a problem longer term, but might be sort of something to have a closer look at. But yeah, that technically looks pretty good. So it looks like short term there wants to go higher there to me. What else is in there? I saw Wax had a bit of a pop there. I think WAM also had something similar there. Just got to, I think these things traded well under NTA. I don't know why they were going down here. So sometimes people are exiting these things for whatever reasons, and then if they're worth more to unwind, then the market can get a bit of a jolt here. So
that's kind
exactly
of WAM's and War's specialty, isn't it? They go in and mop up the licks that are trading at discount, unlock it, take over the shares, and give the other shareholders an opportunity to unlock it NTA.
That's right. Yeah, it's traded pretty well. And then all of a sudden, all these property trusts here. So we got Abacus there. Again, sort of turning up, coming. There's some reasonable volume in there. So starting to sort of show signs there. So we sort of got our low here. Got another. Got sort of 1, 2, sort of 3 high lows sort of building here. So just got some sort of good signs in there. Dexus was moving quite nicely as well. So again, I got a few higher lows in there. Little VCP in here as well, and then starting to pop up there. This might have been breaking above this little high here, getting a close above there was sort of constructive there. Taking a bit to get going. These ones actually nice. I sort of traded a few property trusts there, but they're a bit like sort of ASX and Sonic. They've just taken a little while to really pop here. That's why sometimes just sort of got to have the patience to sort of sit. As long as they don't look negative, you just got to stay with them. Eventually sort of break out here. And this is, Charter Hall has had a big, decent pop as well. So, some nice moves here. NEC, another one of these little false breaks here. Chris went down and retested the low, did a bit of work down there. Had a nice little pop as well. So, looks pretty good. So we're getting plenty going on here. But yeah, I think markets had a pretty good run. Sort of, I still think you got to be, I still expect to be a bit choppy here, Chris. I think there'll be, it's a bit of a 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, sort of market here. So just just be patient there. I think wait for your setups. So I still think it'll be choppy here. I still. October was really the important month for a low. I think early March is probably the next sort of period to watch for a little bit of a dip. But then, but some positive signs developing here. Markets sort of, as we say, talk about change of character there. It's getting a bit of strength here, starting to move forward here. The beauty of a market that goes up, there's a well-worn phrase about the markets climb the wall of worry. So, if we don't have any worries out there, we should be concerned, because that's usually when the markets will go down. So we like an environment where there are plenty of worries, because that's sort of often how markets sort of climb up there. But just be patient here. I think you'll get plenty of setups there. Take a little bit off there. I'll probably, me personally, I might lighten up a tiny bit here today, but still looks pretty healthy.
Nice. Well, they're really good insights, and following up from the last couple of weeks, both with your Tuesday report and these 30-30 lists, where you highlighted that character change, NASDAQ outpacing the rest of the markets, seeing more positive movement in growth. And then about 2 weeks ago in your Tuesday report, you were talking about trying to get that more growth, which is the Xero and that kind of thing. But you're putting Rio and BHP on the screen. You're sort of taunting us with something there, Gary, because you were talking about commodities before.
To see how my shorts are going. I just want to have a quick look. See, I don't know. I don't. Say like, again, this is about the macro sort of stuff as well. So it's always important to understand the macro there. I mean, we talk about all the inflation trades there. So obviously energy was the trade, and then gold was the trade, but gold just didn't work out. And then, but eventually gold did come good. So that's why you get like price action. So when I tried to trade gold a couple of times, but I had to manage my risk, and then they just didn't work out the first couple of times. They popped and then didn't follow through. So I think they break even, and then eventually they popped and then ran. So that's the thing about, you understand the macro, but price action is the most important thing. So look at the price action there. So the thing about all those resource stocks there, you can just sort of see they've gone up. The volumes are really declining there, so that price action is just telling me they're getting tired. Yeah, I'm just sort of, I'm so long here, growth and some other bits and pieces there that I thought I just might pay to have a couple of shorts on just to balance, in case the market does turn down here. But yeah, so today's a good day for me, but it has been a bit of a grind. I would say the last month's been probably, just felt like I've sort of probably been grinding here. But yeah, it's been a good review process for me. I sort of go back and just look at what all the things that made, that work well, and I reviewed a few trades and just realized I was probably getting out too early and some of the things when I probably should have got out of some of my less performing trades and then stayed in the ones that were performing. So, but yeah, as traders here, we just got to keep reading, keep learning, keep improving. The day you think you know it, you'll be schooled the following day. So you just have to sort of keep improving and just sort of just go back to basics. I mean, what's his name, John Wooden, the most winningest coach, 80% of what he does is fundamentals. So just replication, just replicate, keep, got to keep sort of going back and improving it. So you got to review your trades, just all the same patterns, keep doing the same amount of work, keep reviewing charts, keep improving, read books that are going to help you. If you're really passionate about trading, you have to sort of just keep improving and keep reading and keep going there. Can't rest. As soon as you think you've known it all, you've already achieved, and there's nothing left to learn. The market will remind you, quick smart, that's not the case.
Harsh lesson to your wallet. Yeah. Well, they're really good insights, and it's good to sort of meld those into the reports that you're putting forward, because you were talking about how exhausted the energy stocks looked. You've put on shorts. So it's probably a good point to map that we'll put on the right-hand side towards the end, the link towards your Tuesday reports. There's a whole playlist of those. Then also, you've mentioned trading strategies. So we talked about VCPs, false breaks or springs. You've talked about 0, 1, 2, 3 bottoms. These are all things that we've either created videos for in the past, or we've pulled out of other videos and interviews like this where you've gone through in detail on an example of those patterns. So that playlist is on the right, and hey, maybe we'll do a cup and handle one soon. Then finally, on the left, we'll put on there Gary's Twitter handle. You're reasonably active on there, and that's a good way to follow you, what you're doing with trades and macro things. So to that end, we'll probably say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, let's get that cup and handle thing going. That's definitely an area I want to work on and get improve on. So, heaps of good cup and handles here recently. So, I've kept a library of them. So, let's make that happen, eh?
Well, we'll unpack that. We'll pull apart Bulkowski's rules, and we'll put a video together.
Awesome.
Right. Well, if you want to see that, put some comments below and tell us that you like that, or that you've got other trading strategies and patterns that you've seen Gary talk about and you want more detail. You can put some suggestions there too.